How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, you can also text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. First link is the show notes. You can get the podcast, the 4 Things to Know podcast, all the other stuff. Welcome. Also, if you text golf, today's the last day, text the word golf to 33777. You might be able to have me buy you a Van Allen golf putter. Delighted to bring them on next year as an advertiser. I will take your phone calls. Be patient. Be patient. Do you know what the shooter at Brown University said before he opened fire? Have you heard? He said, Allahu Akbar. Usually the last words heard before there's an explosion. Allahu Akbar. Do you know we don't know that from the police? We don't know that from the president of the university. We know that from the students and eyewitnesses. The police and the president of Brown University won't tell us. Interestingly enough, the university has started deleting off its website any link referencing a couple of individuals who are big into Palestinian causes. They claim it's because people were targeting the people, but others noted that they were deleting the stuff before anybody said anything, raising suspicions of, is there a cover-up? Do they know who the shooter is? I don't know. It's interesting. They're deleting certain people's information, particularly one particular person, deleting all the information. They're claiming the guy's getting doxxed and harassed, but others are saying, no, nobody knew anything about this guy until they started deleting all the pages related to him. I don't know. Weird stuff, but they won't say what the shooter said when he opened fire. This is the police chief there in Rhode Island.
Now, there's a report the shooter yelled something right before his shot came in. Can you tell us what that was?
Yeah, it's part of the investigation, John, and we'll... Yeah.
Now, the only reason I asked that, though, is, for instance, like with the Unabomber, his brother recognized the writing. So it's possible a friend or family member might recognize if the person said something that was significant.
Correct.
That's why you don't, other than the 9mm, is there anything else inside that auditorium that you could tell us?
No, that's correct. And listen, like I said earlier, investigations will bring us to evidence that we need to collect in order to be able to prosecute. With that being said, we're going to continue to collect evidence, and if it leads us to something to that nature that's going to be extremely helpful for us to identify somebody, we'll be the first ones to put it out.
Alex, follow up on John's question. Did the suspect yell, like has been reported, and there's been some erroneous reporting, but did he yell when he came in the classroom? And how valuable have witness statements been from those who survived?
Listen, my heart goes out to the victims. It goes out to the families, and I'll tell you that their cooperation has been extremely helpful. And that, with that being said, we'll continue, and I'm going to respect the fact that, and I hope that they get better, and my heart and soul goes out to them. So,
did he yell them?
So that's something that we're investigating. We took statements, and we have to confirm that.
From the scene? So, Mayor, there's a lot of cell phones. A few questions for somebody.
We're gonna wrap it up here.
There you have it. They didn't want to answer the question. Refused to answer the question. He said Allahu Akbar. We know it from the eyewitnesses, but the police still refuse to say it. The administration at Brown University still refuses to say it. This is from the press conference of the president of Brown University. Listen to this.
I want to begin by thanking the many law enforcement agencies who continue to work around the clock on this case. It's very impressive. I also want to thank the mayor and the governor for their continued support. The primary point that I wanted to address before we get to questions is that Brown is deeply committed to the safety and security and well-being of our community. And I've been deeply saddened to see people questioning that. We understand that as time goes on, there is maybe a natural instinct to assign responsibility for a tragic event like this. Anxiety and fear is very natural, but the shooter is responsible. Horrific gun violence took the lives of these students and hospitalized others.
You got that? It was gun violence. Gun violence is to blame. The shooter's to blame because of gun violence. Forget the motives. Forget what he said. They won't tell us what he said. It's gun violence. It is systems and generalities that are to blame, not the specifics, not the specific motivation. It's just gun violence. What is going on with these people? Well, I want to play for you a clip. This is Cameron Kasky. Cameron Kasky was on MSNBC, now MS Now. He was in Parkland High School. He's become a gun control advocate, among other things, from the left. He was on having this conversation. I want you to listen to what he says because it explains everything.
The gun lobby is constantly shifting the blame from themselves to the individuals who perpetrate the violence. This is why I was vocally opposed to the shooter from my high school getting the death penalty. It was not because I think he is a good man. It is because we blame individuals and not the systems in place that allow these things to happen. But the shooting at my high school was not solely due to one human being. This was a person who had had several reports with law enforcement saying that he had expressed violent intentions, and he was still able to legally purchase an assault rifle at 19 years old.
So you're saying the culpability goes beyond him?
I don't focus on the evil of human beings. I focus on evil in systems. And if we do not address the systems that lead to this violence, we are never going to be able to solve it. Killing the mass shooter from my high school, first of all, I don't think the state should have that power. Second of all, that is not going to fix the problem. And
got that? It's the systems to blame. This is why the left, even before the 1619 Project, but really driving that home, has tried to weave this narrative that the United States is a systemically racist regime, that the systems of the United States are racist because they don't blame individuals, they blame the collective. It's all about the collective. So the president of Brown University cannot blame the shooter and the shooter's motivations because the shooter is part of a class. This is critical theory at play. Notice how the conversation about critical theory went away. Critical theory did not go away. Just the conversation about critical theory went away. The people who think it and believe it are still there. Critical theory is the idea that people are part of classes and groups, and you can't escape the group. Tim Keller, the famous theologian who died a few years ago, wrote a piece outlining views of justice. I want to read for you this. I've read it before. You need to understand this. Drawing on the teachings of Karl Marx, what can be called critical theory has emerged very recently with its own account of justice, which sharply differs from all other accounts of justice. Postmodern critical theory argues first, the explanation of all unequal outcomes in wealth, well-being, and power is never due to individual actions or to differences in cultures, or to differences in human abilities, but only and strictly through unjust social structures and systems. The only way to fix unequal outcomes for the downtrodden is through social policy, never by asking anyone to change their behavior or culture. Reality is at bottom nothing but power. And if that is the case, then to see reality, power must be mapped through intersectionality. Intersectionality includes the categories of race, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity, sometimes others. If you're white, male, straight, cisgendered, that is, you identify as a male and are a male, then you have the highest amount of power. If you are none of these things, you are the most marginalized and oppressed. Most importantly, each category towards the powerless end of the spectrum has a greater moral authority and a greater ability to see the way truly things are. Only powerlessness and oppression bring moral high ground and true knowledge. The way power is exercised is through language, the dominant discourse. A dominant discourse is any truth claim, whether grounded in supposed reason and science or in religion and morality. Language does not merely describe reality, it creates reality. Power structures mask themselves behind the language of rationality and truth. So academia hides its unjust structures behind talk of academic freedom, corporations behind free enterprise, science behind empirical objectivity, religion behind divine truth. All of these seeming truth claims are really just constructed narratives designed to dominate others. And we must therefore subvert the dominant paradigms, which requires control of speech. That's critical theory. It's critical theory. That's what Cameron Kasky is explaining. He doesn't blame individuals, he blames the systems of oppression, the systems of racism. This is the left. This is why the left's response to young white men is to simply refuse to hire them, because they were benefited from the system, that they profited from the system, and now that the non-white people are in charge of the system must be turned against them to subvert the dominant paradigm. So it becomes active, willful discrimination against young white men who are still population-wise dominant, along with young white women, but they got to be driven from jobs. We can't just take the best people. We can't just look at a resume without someone's race and say this person's better than this person, because to do that might actually elevate a white person, because the systems are biased towards white people. So the white person is obviously going to be more qualified under those systems. Therefore, we must reject that system of color blindness. Color blindness is just a way for white people to preserve power under the system. That's where we are with the logic of the left. Systems are to blame, people are not. So the police chief in Providence, Rhode Island will not tell us the shooter said Allahu Akbar, because that would immediately imply the individual had a motive that was a minority cultural proposition, and the minority cultural proposition must be dominated above white people. And so we can't cast aspersions, because if we do, it will hurt that class of people, not that person, but Muslims. It will hurt Muslims, so they can't say it under critical theory. The Brown University president can blame gun violence, not terrorism, because gun violence is part of an unjust system in America. And terrorism is what? A response to unjust systems. If it sounds like madness, it is, and that is the madness that has swept through the left. It is cultural Marxism at play. You are hearing this, that people should not be punished because the systems failed them. They are bad not because they are bad because the system made them that way. It is a justification to excuse evil, an evil that Karl Marx wanted to fester, and it has perverted the consciousness of people on the left in America, and they are guiding this investigation for a shooter at Brown University, which suggests they may not want to find him. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here, 877-973-7425. Want to jump to the phones to Matt in St. Augustine, Florida. Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, brother. How are you?
Great. What's going on?
I had a question about something you talked about earlier when you said that Trump would need congressional approval to go put boots on the ground in Venezuela. And I'm just like, we've only, I think, as a country, declared war like 5 times. Everything else we've done on the go. But specifically, in '89, Bush 1 sent troops to Nicaragua. We deposed Noriega, and nobody said anything.
Actually, so Matt, I pulled up this article because I needed to remind myself of what happened because it was in December of 1989. This is from the Associated Press, December 21st, 1989. A clear majority in the Democratic-controlled Congress, which has often urged President Bush to get tough on dictator Manuel Noriega, on Monday applauded the incursion into Panama and urged the administration to bring the deposed leader to justice. My reaction is finally, at last, said House Armed Services Committee Chairman Les Aspin, Democrat of Wisconsin. The White House has done too little for too long, declared Senator Alan Cranston, Democrat of California. I support the president's decision, said Senate Majority Leader George Mitchell, Democrat from Maine, who had been among Bush's harshest critics on foreign policy matters. It was made necessary by the reckless actions of General Noriega. The majority of the Senate in the House of Representatives, including Representative Bill Richardson, Democrat of Nevada, said Noriega was making a laughingstock of the United States and had violated our treaty with Panama, justifying military action without Congress's consent. So that's the Associated Press writing December 21st, 1989, that it was the Democratic leaders in Congress who, at the time, a Democratic Congress telling Bush, you got to do something about Noriega, send the military in to get him. Bill Richardson, who became Bill Clinton's UN ambassador, is the one who said Noriega was violating the Panama Treaty and causing Panama to violate the treaty. By the way, it was Nicaragua, not Panama. Noriega was the Panamanian dictator, and he was violating the treaty. And we went in there to Panama, and we got Noriega out. And it was Democrats in Congress telling Bush, you don't need our permission. He's violating the treaty. Go do it. Now, I got to move on. I need to tell you about Eden Pure and their thunderstorm. You can go to EdenPureDeals.com and you can get 3 of them for less than $200. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3. What are they? They're air purifiers, but they're odor eliminators. They generate ozone, and ozone is well known to be like air bleach, essentially. That's the easy way to describe it. It wipes out odors. Like bleach wipes out colors, ozone wipes out odors. And so if you go to EdenPureDeals.com, you put in ERIC3, ERICK3, you get 3 of these for less than $200. You save $200. You get one for downstairs, your upstairs, your basement, your travel bag, wherever you need them. You can hold them in your hand. You can keep them in your travel bag, and they wipe out odors. Now, don't leave it running all the time because it does generate ozone, but the ozone wipes out the odors. So if you get stinky smell in your house, your basement, your back porch, your rental car, you plug it in. You can plug it in with a USB cord or into the wall, and it wipes out odors. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is ERIC3, ERICK3. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson. The phone number is 877-973-7425. Should you want to be on the program, I want to take your phone calls here in just 1 second, but I got to make a point. I don't mean this disrespectfully. I really don't. And I know some people want to take it disrespectfully. And I'm not talking about any of you listening. I'm talking about the personalities involved. Megyn Kelly went off on her critics the other day for her not wanting to say anything about Candace Owens and talked about how she was trying to broker this conversation between Erica Kirk and Candace Owens. Y'all, this is not real life. Do you know all these people hanging out at the party in Nashville? What it was, Tucker Carlson's company or whatever. They're all friends behind the scenes, a lot of these people. Who was it? John Crist, the comedian, talking about he went to that party and you had TPUSA people there, Candace Owens, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson. This is a soap opera. And what frustrates me is that there's real stuff happening in the world. We have a naval blockade of Venezuela. The foremost leading authority on nuclear fusion in the United States was murdered with no clue who did it on Monday night. The Chinese have penetrated our telecom grid. The President of the United States is going to address the nation tonight. The Chief of Staff of the President is giving interviews with Vanity Fair. We're trying to deal with Ukraine and Russia. We have a crisis of pricing in this country. Voters are turning on Republicans. And we're dealing with the soap opera of Erica Kirk, Candace Owens, Megyn Kelly's involvement. What did Josh Hammer say? And most of you who listen to this, and this is why I love you guys, don't know anything about these people. You don't know these people. My problem, though, is that within the conservative media space, we have turned thoughtful conversation into soap opera. And the reason there is so much traction, I mean, for God's sakes, you've got Alex Jones of all people. Alex Jones, frogs are gay man. Sandy Hook conspiracy theory man out calling out these influencers for being anti-Semites and opening back doors to Islam in this country. When Alex Jones is speaking common sense, you know everyone else has lost the plot. And what it is it's a soap opera now. People care about the lives of these people. It's like my grandmother who used to put Victor Newman from Young and the Restless on the prayer list at church. They're putting these people on prayer lists. They're praying for them. They're actively worried. There were people who were putting up screenshots, and you could get in your head the image of the sort of people, all very white and in very white people houses, worried about Candace Owens and what had happened to her in the meeting with her. These people want a soap opera, and here's why. They live an isolated existence in their local community, and these are the people who used to gossip about the moms in carpool line and the people at church and the country club, and they don't have that anymore. They live online, and they care about the lives of these people, and it is a soap opera. We have traded punditry for soap opera relationships in the conservative media space. I want nothing to do with it. I like some of these people. Some of them I have no time for. Some of them I like. But for all of them, they're getting the clicks for soap opera trash, relational garbage, picking fights with each other, as opposed to giving you the honest news and analysis I think you need. It is Real Housewives of conservative podcasters. That's what's going on here. Now, having gotten that off my chest, let's go to the phones. Hugh, I want to go to you. Thanks for being patient, sir. How are you?
I'm great, and I really appreciate you and what you do. I've met you a couple of times at your barbecue and bourbon bash, Atlanta Children's Healthcare, which is an awesome event. Immigration. I have a remodeling business. I have people that work for me that are undocumented that have been in this country 25, 30 years. Before Donald Trump took office and before Joe Biden opened the borders and let all these people into this country without vetting them and not knowing who came in here, the people that worked for me would drive around. If they got stopped by a policeman, they would get a ticket. They'd pay the fine. They'd come back to work. Now they are terrified to drive because they're afraid they will get deported. Why can't the Republicans and the Democrats come up with a plan where American citizens like me can sponsor an undocumented worker, put them on probation for 5 years, vet them, and give them a way to become a citizen of this country because they love this country?
So, Hugh, this raises a question I got to ask you for part of the audience who is listening to this and immediately deciding you're the bad guy for giving the job to the illegal alien instead of the American. Just why?
Can't find Americans that want to do the jobs. They get paid. My undocumented workers get paid the same as I would pay anybody else, white, black, whatever. Can't find people to do the work.
Hey, look, I'm glad you said it because I hear that all the time from guys in your position. Completely hear it, but it's one thing for me to tell them that I hear this from guys like you. It's another thing for a guy like you to actually say it. And my suspicion is that people are going to be unhappy hearing you say this, and they're not going to appreciate the reality. And I get that, but I'm glad you're willing to say both that you do hire illegal aliens and also that the reason you do is because you can't find other people willing to do the work they're doing at the price point that makes it affordable. My issue here, Hugh, is that I think that Republicans and Democrats are going to have to at some point recognize we do have labor problems in this country, and we actually used to have programs that made it easy for a guy like you to find the labor you needed to be able to get the job done that you want to get done. And largely starting in the late 1960s, unions sabotaged those programs, thinking that it would get to their workers instead. So we need to go back to those programs. And listen, I want to say something to some of the audience right now who really wants me to blow up at Hugh. I'm not. I've met the guy. I know who he is. He's been to my events. And even if he wasn't, he's doing what he's got to do to make a living. And I'm not going to you and I can take issue with hiring illegal aliens. I will tell you that the fact that he's got people who've worked with him that long who are illegal aliens means he's not taking advantage of them the way some companies do. But I would also say that the issue, we like to do things in black and white in this country in these sorts of conversations, and it's not necessarily black and white. This is a guy who is a conservative, who runs a construction business, who can't find the people he needs, but these people are willing to work. Now, the other side of this is, notice also what he said. These are illegal aliens. And they are now scared to be out and about because they are afraid of deportation. Something they've never had to fear before is law enforcement taking seriously this issue. And with Donald Trump, they do. And so you have real world on the ground man in business who has these employees who are scared to be out and about now because they're afraid they're going to be deported, which is what a lot of you wanted. Donald Trump is keeping that promise, whether people like it or not. Now, what I find notable is going back to the Susie Wiles conversation that she thinks they might be being too aggressive and alienating some voters. And this is what I've been warning you guys about. All of you who love what is happening need to understand that you will lose a portion of the coalition that gave you the majority unless you can find a way to replace them. That's just a real concern. Now, related to all of this, actually, and it actually is related to all of this, is a piece by Vivek Ramaswamy. Vivek is running for governor in Ohio, and I gotta read you this. And the reason he's writing this, and I need you to understand this, is that people who found him very useful in the 2024 Republican primaries to go up against Ron DeSantis have turned on him now. They are maligning him and attacking him. Some of the very same people who promoted his candidacy in 2024. And why? It's because he's Indian. Why was he useful to them in 2024? Because he was a way to stop people like Ron DeSantis and others. This is Vivek Ramaswamy. There are two competing visions now emerging on the American right, and they are incompatible. One vision of American identity is based on lineage, blood, and soil. Inherited attributes matter most. The purest form of an American is a so-called heritage American, one whose ancestry traces back to the founding of the United States or earlier. This view is now popularized by the Groyper Right, a rapidly ascendant online movement that argues for the creation of a white-centric identity. This is a predictable response, one that I anticipated in my 2022 book, Nation of Victims, to anti-white discrimination over the last half-decade, and it is no longer just a fringe viewpoint. The alternative, and in my view, the correct vision of American identity is based on ideals. Americanness isn't a scalar quality that varies based on your ancestry. It's binary. Either you're an American or you're not. You are an American if you believe in the rule of law, in freedom of conscience and freedom of expression, in colorblind meritocracy, in the U.S. Constitution, in the American dream, and if you are a citizen who swears exclusive allegiance to our nation. As Ronald Reagan quipped, you can go to live in France, but you can't become a Frenchman. But anyone from any corner of the world can come to the United States and become an American. No matter your ancestry, if you want your turn and obtain citizenship, you are every bit as American as a Mayflower descendant, as long as you subscribe to the creed of the American founding and the culture that was born on it. This is what makes American exceptionalism possible. The divide between these two views is more foundational than policy divides between Republicans and Democrats. Older Republicans who may doubt the rising prevalence of the blood and soil view should think again. My social media feeds are littered with hundreds of slurs, most from accounts that I don't recognize, about Pajeets and sheet poopers, I'll say, and calls to deport me back to India. I was born and raised in Cincinnati and have never resided outside the United States. Anti-Semitic statements are now normalized online, and it's not limited to the internet either. Rod Dreher, a conservative writer, recently described a trip to D.C. where he estimated that a sizable minority of Republican Gen Z staffers are fans of Nick Fuentes. The new online right movement doesn't represent the views of most real-world Republican voters. Take it from a son of Indian immigrants who dominates polling in Ohio's GOP primary for governor. But as one of the most vocal opponents of left-wing identity politics, I now see real reluctance from my former anti-woke peers to criticize the new identity politics on the right. The pattern eerily mirrors the hesitance of prominent Democrats to criticize woke excesses in the run-up to the 2024 presidential election, even though most Democratic voters clearly never believed that math is racist or that hard work and the written tradition are hallmarks of whiteness. That's a big part of why Kamala Harris lost in such spectacular fashion. If the post-Trump GOP makes the same mistake with our identitarian fringe, we will meet a similar fate. He's right. He's right. And I got to tell you, it's horrifying to see this rise. And interestingly enough, I do kind of wonder if there's some subtle criticism of J.D. Vance here, who has toyed with trying to bring this identitarian fringe into the right. But you see this growing racism of these online accounts. And by the way, it's a minority offline. It is a minority offline, but online it's a real problem. And it will spill over offline. And one of the reasons it's growing among young men who are highly online is because they are being targeted. They are being targeted. This is Ross Douthat in the New York Times today. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. This was the watchword of the era, implying that any claim of anti-white discrimination is really just a resentful reaction to a long overdue balancing of the scales. The most important aspect of the argument by Jacob Savage in his essay from Compact Magazine, The Lost Generation, which I talked about yesterday, is the use of data to suggest that no, the apparent discrimination is probably real discrimination, yielding hiring patterns aimed at redress rather than just equal treatment. In an essay on literary culture earlier this year, Savage noted the extraordinary fact that as of this writing, not a single white American man born after 1984 has published a work of literary fiction in The New Yorker. His new essay offers many more such data points, less extreme but still remarkable, covering topics such as media internships, tenure-track jobs, and Hollywood writing staff. And while his argument focuses on the creative class, he points out that white men shut out of the culture industries didn't surge into other high-status fields because the general pattern held everywhere, from medical schools to corporate middle management. White male enrollment and employment fell sharply under woke conditions. If you weren't an absolute peak talent, it was a bad time to be young, ambitious, well-educated, and white. One progressive counterpoint might be that demographic change and the general educational struggles of boys explain some of the shift. Some of them do, but not the speed and scale of it. Another counterpoint might be that for the entirety of American history, discrimination ran the other way, and if the past 10 years were unfair to some set of white men, well, revolutions are always a little bit messy, and success is nobody's natural birthright. But even if you set aside the moral problem of collective punishment, is a young white man who wants an academic job in 2020 responsible for how white men behaved in the 1960s, and the legal issue of the discrimination on race and sex, you got to set that quite a bit aside, you're still left with the political problem. This particular attempt at revolution has created a cadre of potential counter-revolutionaries with a clear material grievance against the entire system, especially against its claims to moral superiority on issues related to race. And some of those young men are turning racist because of what the left has done. And on the right, some of them are embracing the very same identitarian politics the left has embraced, and they will meet the same fate. Most Americans reject identitarian politics. Vivek Ramaswamy is right to be raising the alarm. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. If you text golf to 33777, today's the last day. I will be buying 3 people putters from Van Allen Golf. And I have my own now. It is a refined steel and ceramic shaft. It's got a bronze putting head that's you can get I think carbon steel if you want a light one, or the bronze one if you want a heavy. My gosh, it is the most balanced thing. I've never believed the hype about these expensive putters you can get out there, and then I held this thing and I understood immediately. I was actually at my golf club yesterday, and people just started passing the thing around, impressed with it. It is really great. It really is great. Van Allen Golf. Looking forward to having them next year, too, as an advertiser. Text golf to 33777. Americans for Prosperity wants you to get involved nationwide. If you go to AFPvolunteer.com, you can sign up with AFP, and you can be an activist. They'll train you. If you just want to be really informed about conservative policy advancements in the states and in Washington, you can do that as well. AFPvolunteer.com. AFPvolunteer.com. You can sign up with Americans for Prosperity. They'll get you informed. They'll get you involved. They'll teach you how to persuade your neighbors. It just fantastic opportunities for you to learn about advancing freedom in the states and in Congress. They support school choice, permitting reforms. They support deregulation. They support families and pro-family legislation. AFPvolunteer.com. Get involved with Americans for Prosperity today. I am on their board of advisors. I go around the country doing speeches for them, doing events. They're a great group of people. If you want to be involved in the heart of the conservative movement, advancing freedom, go to AFPvolunteer.com today and sign up with Americans for Prosperity. When we come back, the collapse of cities. It's a choice to decline, and Democrats are making it.